All right, here we go.
Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught! Jelani Woods! Touchdown! INDY!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up. Got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn Emmy winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody, how are you? Appreciate you being with us on this Friday. It is October, 20th, I believe? Yes, sir, it is. Welcome aboard. Appreciate you being on with us today, as it is Hoosier Hysteria tonight. Boogie Flan announcing his decision today. And all things, the tea leaves are pointing towards, we'll talk about that. Bob Kravitz will join us on the program today from bobkravitz.substack.com. Also, Zach Osterman from the Indy Star, as well as Andrew Barth, as we'll talk more about Boogie Flan. He is up in New York, and we shall see. But Michigan, in a little Jim Harbaugh, in a little hot water. But you know what? You know who he's starting to remind me of? There's a guy in the NFL, and his name is Bill Belichick. He coached the team, what was that? Oh, yeah, the New England Patriots. They won like 67 Super Bowls or something. They cheated all the damn time. Bill Self, righteous. Hey, for those who say cheating doesn't win, I'm going to have to disagree with you. It seems to win a lot, but we'll talk about that and much more as well. Hoosier Hysteria this evening, as I said. Boogie Flan, the news is bouncing around, and I'm sure that if you've been paying attention to social media, the prognostications are starting to fly and not heading in Indiana's direction from all the things that I've seen, this people I spoke with late last night. But nothing's done until it's done. Appreciate everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Don't forget Andy Moore, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore Honda. Just go to andymoorehonda.com to get more to your door and the best in new and used vehicles. Oh, that's a good one. Bill Belichick. Oh, wow. I'm sure that's been said before. If not, that's a great one, Philip. I had not heard that. Damn it. That's a good one. I like that. Appreciate everybody. Like I said, Las Vegas Larry jumping on with us. I like that. Oh, Las Vegas Larry. You should write a book. Fred from Easton, PA. Kevin down in Southern Indiana, Jeffersonville. Rudy the Boxer up and at it. Dave down in Jacksonville. Philip Kent from Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Jamie from Grand Rapids. Man, you guys, you Michiganders are at it, baby. Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody, no matter what. Today is decision day for Boogie Flan, and all the prognostications were. There hasn't been a lot of prognostication, really. This has been a tight race. I've been sticking with, it's an Indiana lean, but it's a 50-50 coin toss. And that's pretty much been the case. But the things that have been kind of popping off the deal is that the tea leaves are pointing towards Lexington. But we won't know for sure until he makes it known. And but Mike, I asked this question yesterday. Where does Indiana go next with that? And how will that, if that does not go in the direction that Indiana would like to see it, does that affect Derek Queen? And if so, is there a domino effect what does Indiana do next? I know that they have Gabe Cupps already, but there's a reason they were going after Boogie Fland. So we'll have to see what's up next. Indiana is also one commitment for the 2024 class right now with Liam McNeely, and already has an extra scholarship because they didn't fill it last year. So they're going to have plenty of room. We'll see how that goes. Appreciate you being with us. Lots of other things to get to on the can't think of the word I was looking for. Docket. On the docket for today. We got to get ready for football, baby. Speaking of which, don't forget to go to ESPN and the college pick'ems for our weekly pick'ems. I'm in like 14th place. Tied for 14th, I should say. I'm not going to be able to challenge those at the top. I do not believe. But we shall see. We shall see. There's plenty of season left to play. I am reaching over there to pull that one up as we speak. College Pick'ems 2023. I am 45-25 on the year. That sounds worse than it is. I don't know how in the world that is 94.1%, or maybe that's in the 94 percentile. But my ranking, baby, I rank, this is in all of ESPN's things, 25,403rd. How about them apples? On this week's list of games on our ESPN College Pick'ems, it starts with Penn State at Ohio State. That is the Big Ten game of the week. The Pac-12, you've got USC taking on Utah. Do they bounce back from that bad loss to Notre Dame that, in essence, in my opinion, has taken them out of the college football playoffs picture? When you combine that with the overtime win at Arizona. But you know what? They can come back and win the Pac-12 Conference Championship, and that would get them back in. We'll see what Washington does this week, as I think they are at home against Arizona State, I think. I'll have to pull that one up. I don't have the full game schedule. Clemson travels to Miami. That's on our college pick'ems. Utah is at USC. I mentioned that one. Ole Miss at Auburn. Then there's some smaller games. Oklahoma State is at West Virginia. Here's a game. Minnesota at Iowa. Minnesota not having the year that many of us expected. They're 3-3 on the season, and that's playing in the Big Ten West. Iowa currently at 6-1. They're 6-1. They've played 7 games already. They have just not looked, they've stunk, but they've got a coach who, the offensive coordinator, you think Indiana has troubles. Indiana's offensive coordinator, Kirk Son, has a caveat with his contract that they have to score 25 points a game. Well, first of all, when has Iowa ever scored 25 points a game? But they're not trending in that direction. We'll see how that goes. Penn State and Ohio State, that's going to be a fun one. Ohio State's still ranked number 3. I'm not getting. I'm not seeing that. That is, you want to talk about being ranked by your name. They are being ranked because of who they are, not what they are. Anybody that has watched college football this year and that has watched Washington State play and has them ranked below Ohio State is out of their ever-loving mind. Washington has destroyed virtually everyone they played. They had a go of it down in Arizona, which on the road, but they didn't go to overtime. But they've also have a hell of a win over a very good Oregon team. An Oregon team that probably should have won that game had they made some different decisions. Had Oregon made some different decisions. But they came out alive, but they're still ranked 7th. I'm like, get out of here with that. Their offense is prolific. Ohio State is not what I call prolific. They have names. They have Marvin Harrison Jr. They do not have a Heisman candidate at quarterback. It says Ohio State on the front. And that's all that seems to matter to voters. They beat Indiana 23-3. Washington this is partly why the Big Ten kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, lets people down at the end of the year sometimes in the playoffs. They're overranked. This Ohio State team is not that damn good. Now, that doesn't mean they don't beat Penn State. I've got Penn State picked to win that game. But they're not the number 3 team in the country. They started out as the number 3 team in the country because that's what they thought they were going to be. Well, who thought the Big Ten West was going to suck the way it does? Nobody. It's terrible. It's god-awful. But we shall see. How's everybody else doing? Appreciate you jumping on board, like I said, Andy. John's on from Southport. Jamie from Grand Rapids. Andy says, he gone. He going to Kentucky. No reason to give false hope. Ain't nobody giving false hope. It is what it is. Portal or spring recruits that reopen. Yeah. Not a game you want to fall into when it comes to recruiting. That's partly why Indiana has an open scholarship at the moment. Philip asking, what is my pick on Ohio State versus Penn State? Man, that's a good one. It's at Ohio State, and that does matter. You're going to have close to 100,000 people there, and it matters. But I'm going to go with Penn State. I think Ohio State is overranked. I've not watched Penn State play this year. It hasn't worked out to watch them, but I think that they're a more well-rounded team. The Ohio State offense has yet to impress is not the exact right phrase, but they haven't just wowed me, I guess I'll say. But we'll talk to Bob Kravitz about it because he's going to join us next as we'll take a break here. We'll be back with lots more here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Well, Ryan, we'll talk about that one, but I'm going to tell you, in this day and age, if you've got a guy that's a starter for 3 years, you do not have elite talent. And you have to have elite talent to win at the elite level. I think Gabe's going to be a great player. I think Gabe is a great player. And you need more than one point guard. Tony down in Owensboro. Speaking of which, who was it that Rutgers starting quarterback is from Owensboro, Kentucky. You got to remember that. I saw that last night on something. Oh, yeah. Dave G., how are you doing, sir? Derek. How's the boss?
How are you, buddy?
I'm alive, baby. I'm alive, and it's Friday.
Yes. Gonna go see a band tonight and gonna have some fun.
Is it the Boogie Boys?
No, it's the Elect. The Elect. I've never heard of. I when I went to see the Springsteen concert, I went with Jake Query and a guy named Michael Weir. And Michael is the lead singer and guitarist for the Elect. So I'm going to go to the what's the name of it? The Raskeller.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the beer garden. It's pretty cool.
Man, look at you hobnobbing with all the big boys.
That's me.
All right, guys. We go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. It's October 20th, Hoosier Hysteria Day, Bob Kravitz Day. Man, it's just a great day all the way around. Unfortunately, Bob, I don't think it's going to be Boogie Flan Day for Indiana fans from where the tea leaves are pointing. The peeps I talked to late last night as well. All signs are starting to point towards Lexington on that particular deal, but you can't win them all, baby.
No, and the important thing is that they're trying to sit at the big boys table. You know, they got McNeely. They still have a shot at Derek Queen, the Montverde teammate for McNeely. So, you know, I like, you know, they were able to keep Trace, you know, who's basically a 5-star. They're able to get Jalen Hood-Schifino 5-star. They got I can't even say his name.
Mackenzie
Mbako. He's a 5-star. Now McNeely and nobody, you know, you don't know who else. So I know Indiana fans were freaking out because there are no commitments for 24, you know, heading into the month of October. But I think people can chill out now. They got McNeely, and I still think they've got some more tricks up their sleeves.
Yeah, they're not done, obviously. But I did ask this question: if they didn't get Boogie yesterday, I asked if things did not go their way, where do they go? Because they've kind of been all in on these three guys, on Liam, which. That one was pretty much set, and like everyone was asking, "Oh, what do you think on Boogie?" Well, I mean, it was kind of an Indiana lean I was hearing for a long time, but I never had the conviction that I did with Liam McNeely. I'm like, well, that's a done deal. You can put that one in the bank, and it was nothing close on this one, and it was never close the other way either. So this one was a close race, and it's not yet been decided. We're kind of prognosticating here, but and Indiana has an open scholarship from last year that they didn't fill already. So there's, you know, you've got some carryover there. You've got Gabe Cupps already on the roster, who is going to be playing behind Xavier this year, which will be great for him. And someone mentioned earlier, said, don't sleep on Gabe. You may have a 3-year starter. And I'm like, well, I don't know that you want a 3-year starter at point guard. That's great on paper to have that per se, but at the same time, you have to still be able to land elite talent at elite positions, and you need more than one point guard.
Well, you know, for years I've heard coaches, especially Matt Painter, and Tom Izzo talk about get old and stay old. That really doesn't work anymore in college basketball. Not with these one and dones. I can't blame Boogie Fland if he does decide indeed to go to Kentucky. I can't blame him because all John Calipari has to do is say, look at the guys I put in the NBA. I mean, my God, it's a laundry list of great players, going all the way back to Derrick Rose. So I can't say that I blame him. He walks in there, becomes the starting point guard. He's a one and done, one would think. But if that's your goal, there are worse places you can go than Kentucky. I hate to say it, but it's the truth.
Well, yeah. Whether it's Cheatham, Kansas, or they're in Lawrence, Kansas. Duke, any big time, but you don't have to come from there either. We've seen guys, although it has changed, but you still, no matter what, if you look at the NBA, there are going to be guys and you're like, he played where? Again, I go back to, where did Scottie Pippen play? Where did Dennis Rodman play? He played in places you never heard of.
Right. Central Arkansas or something like that.
Well, that's
John Morant was at Moorhead?
Yeah.
Where was he? I forget now. John Morant.
Murray.
Excuse me. I got my M's mixed up.
Kentucky schools mixed up.
Yeah. Look, there are a lot of late bloomers who become great players once they get to college. Look at Zach Edey. Zach Edey was like the 500th top recruit, and he's player of the year, and he's probably going to be player of the year for another year. And he was not somebody who was highly thought of coming out of Canada. So you can. Remember Oladipo. Oladipo was nothing special coming into Indiana, and he developed. He was a three-star, right? I remember talking to his coach, his high school coach, and he said he was basically a guy who was really athletic and ran around a lot and created havoc, but was not a great player. And he got to Indiana and working with Tom Crean, he got significantly better and became a top draft choice. So those guys are out there. If you can't get the 5 stars, you've got to develop the hell out of these guys.
Absolutely. And that is something that Indiana and Mike Woodson have on their resume right now. And that Jalen Hood-Schifino is to be thanked for that. But not only, you just saw Trace Jackson Davis got his first start in a double-double.
Double. Isn't that something? Yeah. I'm a little surprised. I thought he would be a decent rotation guy. I don't know he's going to get those kinds of minutes once the regular season starts, but he's been very, very impressive, and he fits. He's in a perfect spot for him, I think, in Golden State, because he can back up Draymond and do a lot of the things that Draymond does.
Absolutely, and it works towards his game, so he may have landed at the absolutely perfect place for him,
no doubt,
for his game, and that's what matters. We've got football coming up this weekend. Hoosier Hysteria tonight. Speaking of Hoosier Hysteria, what a kick in the nuts it is to have if Boogie Fland does not go Indiana's way. Really? Can you not pick a different day? If I'm Mike Woodson, I'm like, all right, but do me a favor. If you're going to make this announcement, do it on Saturday, on Monday, on Tuesday, any day, but on Hoosier Hysteria.
It'll still be packed, and who is playing Gucci Mane? Is that the guy?
You got it. Yeah, is that who you're going to see tonight?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely. I'm a big Gucci Mane guy. Is he a rapper?
Do
you know?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you can tell by my conviction in my answer.
Yeah, I don't know. We're 2 old white guys. Nothing we can do about it.
Yep. Yes, sir. But it's not just that. It's just you could have stopped it old because the young kids They all know him, man.
The kids do. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's generational, no doubt.
Oh, and let me tell you, there was nothing that made me feel older than I'm still a fan of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
I've been since I was a kid. So it's recorded every week, so I watch it. Stuff that I don't want to watch, I just skip through whatever. But anyway, last year there was a time where I did not know the host or the musical act. And I'm like, that's it. I'm out. I'm like, it's over.
I try to keep up on it just to stay current, and yeah, I want to be on top of that stuff the best I can. But, bottom line is I'm a 63-year-old man, and I love me some Bruce Springsteen, and I'm not saying sorry about it either.
Nor should you, because first of all, if you go to a stadium and when they're playing music, whether it's in between quarters, in between whatever, what is it? It's usually AC/DC or Van Halen or something like that. It is not stadium. It ain't Taylor Swift, I can tell you that, unless you're in Kansas City, maybe.
Maybe. So it's been a weird week. We had the Anthony Richardson
announcement,
surgery coming up. I guess he's going to do that next week. That's such a bummer, but I'm scared for this kid. I mean, 3 times he's been knocked out of games, and it's scary. I think they're doing the right thing. I think they've learned from the Andrew Luck fiasco to get him under the knife and get this thing, taken care of now instead of letting it linger. I think they're making the right call here. And everything they're doing with Anthony has been informed by how they not mishandled, but how the Luck situation was mishandled largely by Luck and his people because they didn't want surgery.
Yeah, and that's something that is just going. It still follows the Colts. I mean, how long has this been now? 5 years?
You mean of the quarterback carousel? 7, 8. I mean, this year was 7 quarterbacks in 7 years. It's funny. I got a couple of tweets last night. People saying, we can't have nice things. We break quarterbacks, yada, yada. I'm like, if you're in Cleveland or Chicago, you're saying, hold my beer, because those franchises haven't had a starting quarterback in 15, 20, 30 years. I go back to the Cleveland Browns. They haven't had a decent quarterback since Bernie Kosar. I covered Bernie Kosar in the late 80s in Cleveland. Chicago Bears haven't had anybody since, I don't know. I mean, you got to go back to the 50s and 60s, I think.
Yeah, and it is ironic. I've been saying this for a while. It's not just Richardson, but the Colts and Indiana football has had some parallels for the last 2 years, which have been oddly similar. Boy, that's a real knock on the Colts, I guess you'd say, on that. But
who's going to start for IU on Saturday? That's
man. I did another radio show already today, and that question came up, and I'm like, hell, I don't know.
Does it matter?
Like, no, to me it does. I think they should have went with Brendan Sorsby game 1, start 1, and that's what it should have been. And they might not be in this situation right now, but they couldn't make a decision. They had all summer, all fall, and still couldn't make a decision.
I know. That is astounding to me. That's astounding to me. I mean, it's the old saw that if you've got 2 quarterbacks, you've got none. And I'm not sure either
coach
one
you can't make a decision. You don't have one.
Right. And I think this is an important game for Tom Allen. I really do. I mean, it's one thing to lose to Michigan and to Ohio State and whomever, but here you've got another sort of bottom feeder, although they're having a better season. Rutgers. This is Sid Luckman. Thank you, Philip. I couldn't think. I was thinking Goodman. No, it wasn't Goodman. It's Sid Luckman.
Sid Luckman. Oh my God,
that's their last quarterback. I mean, unless you want to count Jim McMahon, and Jim McMahon was nothing special.
Someone
threw
him up too.
Just had a great defense, but no, it's interesting. Brian Sipe. Yeah, I remember Brian Sipe. Your listeners are very sharp.
They're on it, man. And that was the last time Cleveland was good until now. How about the Browns? They've been through more quarterbacks than I can.
I love
Indiana goes through offensive, and then Indiana goes through offensive coordinators.
It's unbelievable. And you know, it's funny. I'm reading this morning about the Michigan cheating scandal. We're going all over the place here, and it's my fault. But
no, I love it.
You know, I was thinking if they stole signs to beat Indiana, they should have the book thrown at them merely for stupidity. That sounds more like an OSHA violation than it does an NCAA violation. I mean, that's insane. But I'll be really curious to see how this whole thing plays out.
It's not going to matter. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? You have Bill Self caught again.
Got off with nothing.
Cheating. I said this yesterday. If anybody thinks that Kansas was not cheating their ass off, that North Carolina didn't cheat their ass off, that Duke didn't cheat their ass off, then you are living in.
Let me ask you this: how'd they cheat? Because there are no rules left in the rule book, right?
Now, before I'm talking about before.
Oh, before. Oh, okay, yeah. Before we.
This is before they changed the rules. Before they made it legal to do all the things that those schools were already doing.
Right.
Right. But the point is, it's like it's like they said, okay, well, it's legal now, so let's just forget about it. And you know, Bill Self walks away with a big old cheese-eating grin,
right?
Because Bill wins again. But you also look at boy, it's a great name somebody gave him, Bill Belichick. New England cheated their ass off.
Oh yeah.
When you see these dynasties, Alabama, who was it? Jimbo Fisher. When Nick Saban was it last year said something about look at Texas A&M, their whole roster's bought or something, and then Jimbo Fisher spoke up, and said, "Hold on, buddy, I was an assistant coach over at Alabama, and I know everything that goes on." And and away Nick Saban went. So, unfortunately, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That's just a mantra that is, whether you like it or not, it's true.
It's pretty sad, though, if Michigan was involved in sign stealing. I mean, that to have people at the games decoding your signs. I mean, you know, you could say it's not that big of a deal, but you know, it's bad. It's a bad look for Michigan and a bad look for Harbaugh, and he's claiming he knew nothing about it. And what else would you expect him to say?
Yeah, of course not. Jamie said Michigan probably knew IU's offense better than IU. Well, that may be
true. Most teams.
Maybe they should have called their plays for him. You've had several pieces out, a lot of stuff on the Colts at bobkravitz.substack.com. Also the mailbag that you've sent out. All kinds of creative different things.
I got a piece going later this afternoon. I want to see what Boogie does. And I want to listen to a few things coming down the pike here. But I got kind of musings of an old sports writer, just kind of odds and ends. People seem to like reading those. So I'm going to put one of those out shortly after Flan makes a decision at 2:00 this afternoon.
Yeah,
so
that'll be.
I hope you'll read it.
Absolutely. Everybody should read it. Should be a subscriber. If you're not, you are missing out. Let me tell you. I am. And trust me, I enjoy reading them. They're very, very informative, and it's you learn something. Indiana plays Rutgers on Saturday, tomorrow, and you mentioned that this is an important game for Tom Allen. I have to disagree because what are they going to do?
Well,
what's in it? He could lose every game the rest of the season.
I think this season is still somewhat salvageable. I mean, look, they're not going to fire him if he loses. They're not going to give him an extension if he wins. The point being that I think people look at it and say, okay, they lost to a pretty good Maryland team. They lost to Ohio State. They lost to Michigan. But if they lose and get crushed like they have in the past by Rutgers, I think that puts this thing on a trajectory where there's no return. I mean, if you can't take care of Rutgers at home, kind of like Akron. I mean, obviously Rutgers is better than Akron, but if you can't take care of business there, then this is a hopeless cause. It's an absolute cause.
I will say Greg Schiano has done a good job.
Oh, he has, no doubt.
Because this is a guy who probably should have been Tennessee's coach.
Yeah.
Tennessee screwed the pooch on that one. And I can only imagine what he would have done with the resources that they have. Not that they're in a bad position right now, but they did after they went the damn wrong way. That was for certain. But Rutgers is on a roll. They're one game from bowl eligibility, by the way. And on top of that, their starting quarterback is from Owensboro, Kentucky. I happened to notice yesterday looking at something. And then one of our listeners from Owensboro mentioned a minute ago, he coached him in Little League football.
Okay. Well,
Tony.
Yeah, I mean, Rutgers is not the awful Rutgers we've known in the past, but still it's a team that you should be on the same level with at this point. And they aren't. And, if they, what was the score a couple of years ago? It was like
52 to or whatever it was. It
was horrible. I just think that if they get crushed again, then there's no turning back. And then you just got to wait till the end of next season and that $7.95 million buyout and just, say, okay, that's it.
And there's also a caveat to that. Let's say that they are next year under the tutelage of Rod Carey and Justin Fuentes, if he's here for longer than a year. I don't know what his situation is. I don't remember. But if they happen to go 6-6 and go to a bowl game, that's an automatic extension for Tom Allen's contract.
Yes. I'm aware of that. So, boy, that could screw the whole thing up, couldn't it?
That could make life rougher on Indiana than it is right now, because that also pushes the buyout, I think, at the same level, I would imagine, right? It would just kind of just move everything down a rung.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have 3 automatic wins, with the teams they're playing in the non-conference, you would think. I mean, I think they got a pretty soft non-conference schedule next year. There's no reason you can't win 6, but it's Indiana. It's
absolutely
Indiana. So anyway,
Bob's going out concert hopping tonight.
Yeah, baby.
Up in Indy. Where the Rathskeller, that's right.
Rathskeller, yeah. I got a buddy who's the lead singer for The Elect, and I hear they're really good. I went to see Springsteen with this guy along with Jake Query, and we had a great time. So he invited me to see his band. So that's what I'm going to do.
Well, man, I wish I was there to join you. It sounds fun. Tell Jake hello, and make sure you go to bobkravitz.substack.com for all the great content. Absolutely, please do. Bob, thank you, brother. Have fun tonight, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, sounds good.
We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star joins us later, as does Andrew Barth. And we'll be back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
I will be right back, people. Holy moly. Ow. My hat's crooked.
All right, we go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. It is October 20th. You've got Hoosier Hysteria tonight at Simon Scott Assembly Hall at 7 p.m. Who's going? Anybody on the Andy Moore Honda hotline heading to Bloomington? In Bloomington, going? Just curious. You know, someone asked earlier if I saw the piece on Pat Knight, and I did watch that. And Ty always does a good job. Her daughter of oh gosh, dang it, can't think of Jeff Goodman. Couldn't think of Jeff's first name. Sorry about that. But Pat, of course, is a scout for the Indiana Pacers. Boom. Look at that if you're watching on YouTube. Speaking of which, if you do happen to follow us on YouTube for the things that you miss or can't catch on radio, make sure you are a subscriber. It means the world to us. We greatly appreciate it. Just hit that subscribe and notifications toggle and the like button while you're at it. Even if you don't like us, just for the hell of it, just hit it. Just kidding. Well, not kidding. Kidding, not kidding. Hope everybody's having a great day, ready for the weekend. The weather should be pretty nice. I don't know what it is here of late. I've paid like zero attention to the weather forecast. You used to be able to ask me what the weather was going to be, and I could tell you for 5 days. And maybe it's working 12 hours a day that does that. You start forgetting those or not thinking about things like that. But looking ahead to tomorrow's forecast for the game, my, oh my, 71 degrees for a high. Beautiful, perfect. Partly cloudy skies, no chance, 7% chance of precipitation. So that should be an outstanding day. Sunday, the weather looks great coming up over all the way through next Wednesday. So celebrate that. Speaking of which, our good friends here at the golf club at Eagle Point, while the golf season is kind of winding down, there's no time like the present to get your early bird special, because they have got their memberships for next year already out at early bird pricing. And it's only good until November 16th, I believe. You can go to eaglepoint.com. It's easy. Just go to eaglepoint.com and you can pull up all that information, or 812-824-4040, 812-824-4040, and you can pull that information up. Even for those that do not live around here, it's a great deal, because it only ends up taking about 4 rounds a month to pay for an entire membership. So there you go. Hoosier Hysteria taking place tonight at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. 7 p.m. is when things kick off. I think there's going now, of course, there are surprises. You've got recruits that are going to be there, but I think there's going to be a surprise. I'm guessing Pat Knight comes out in candy stripes. That's me. That is nothing that I have heard. So this is not some kind of inside information. And I truly mean that. I've just, obviously Pat was in town. Pat Graham, I noticed what a great thing Pat did. I'd have to go to the Twitter, IU basketball Twitter page to find Sam's full name, but from down in the Evansville area, from Memorial High School, and I'm going to do that because it's worth that. But he brought a young man up with him to meet Woody and the crew yesterday. So you'll bear with me as I talk and bang through here trying to find that real quick. But it was just great to see. He's got a rare condition. There we go, Indiana basketball. So it's always good to see that. And especially Pat, great guy, Highlander, went to Floyd Central. But daggone it. Well, I don't know where that was and who posted that. So somebody, one of you great folks that are from that area, from down in Evansville, point me in that direction of what Sam's name is. I want to give him a shout out, but also our good buddy Pat Graham, who was responsible for bringing him up and meeting the crew. And again, that kind of coincides to me with Pat Knight being in town. The two Pats. Boy, what a show that would be. And I'm telling you, what a show that would be, having gone to school. I shouldn't say with both of them, but I was at IU at the same time. But yeah, boy, the two Pats. That just makes me laugh. But Pat Graham, who lives down in the Evansville area now, of course, are good peeps that join us each and every day on 97.7, the ESPN, the Ref down there. All very, very familiar with our friend Pat Graham. So, and then Sam Schultz, thank you very much. Gritty, sending that in. I knew I could count on someone. Pat Graham and Nick Verdon for sending a great data. He got to watch Indiana men's basketball practice. I've never seen an Indiana men's basketball practice. Got to meet Woody, some great pictures. Sam with the team over in Cook Hall, the entire team, man. I mean, all the coaches. There's Jordan, there's Brian Walsh, there's Calvert, Woody, of course. Everybody is in this picture, and that's great to see. And who is that acting so goofy? That's funny. Is that McKenzie? It's great seeing that, and great to see Sam with a smile on his face. So congratulations to Sam Schultz. Anybody that knows him, let him know that we're thinking about him and happy that he got to enjoy that. What a great day for him. So congratulations to him. Who's your daddy says, damn, Boogie isn't going to happen, is it? Well, man, don't give up so easy. But lots to get to. Sam, jumping on from Florida, our good buddy Sam, one of our great Florida listeners, says at least Indiana's not Texas A&M, who owes Jimbo Fisher, if he's fired in or after 2023, $76.8 million. After 2024, it's only $67 million. After 25, it's $58 million. Do you call this worse than the Mel Tucker contract? Because at least Jimbo Fisher came in with the notoriety of having success, of being at Florida State. It has not gone anything close to what any of us expected down there. He brings in Bobby Petrino, another mastermind, offensive mastermind, and they're still just treading water. That's amazing to me. That might be the most amazing thing to me yet. And trust me, down in Texas, they don't take kindly to not winning. SMU raised $100 million in a week just to get out of the AAC so they could move on to the Big 12. Just to get out of their conference. In a week. That's what football means in Texas. So, what? Jerry Seinfeld is at IU tonight? You got to be kidding me. Is this for real? Why in the hell would you have a name like that perform the same night as Hoosier Hysteria? Is that really true? And if it is, they don't do a very good job of advertising that stuff. Speaking of Evansville, the modern day girls down there, girls soccer in the semi-state. Good luck to Memorial High School. as well. In boys soccer, they're in a semi-state. I think that's at North High School tomorrow at 3 p.m. So good luck to our Evansvillians. How the hell do you say that? I've never even thought of that. Evansvillians. Huh. How about just river rats? Isn't that easier? Like, like the region rats. It's a name of affinity. But so Harry says that, got a friend going to see Seinfeld tonight. I've seen Seinfeld. It's a good act. It's worth seeing. And Philip corrected me. That's right. They're going to the ACC. Probably easier to win in football there. Maybe that's why they were in such a rush. Thank you for that, Philip. But $100 million in a week. We've got to take a break. We've got lots more coming up in the next hour here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We'll be back with it, including Zach Osterman and Andrew Barth right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Good job, RC. That one had slipped by me. I would have kept going. I cannot believe they have Jerry Seinfeld tonight on the night of Hoosier Hysteria. Who the hell planned that?
He should be at Hoosier Hysteria.
Well, what time is the show?
And good job to you as well. We're back on league break in time for Fort Wayne, so we're good. And you're talking about my hometown a lot today, Evansville. I went to Modern Day High School. I didn't realize the girls were going to state.
That's semi-state.
Oh, okay.
But is that one game or two now? They keep changing it so much. I can't remember.
I have no idea.
He's doing 2 shows.
Seinfeld is?
Yeah. Why the hell? Who in the hell? I mean, is it me? Is it just me? Hey, Zach, how are you, brother?
Hey, sorry, I'm in the car. I had to take him into daycare today, so I'm
never a problem. I knew as soon as you came on, I can just tell, baby. We have people that do that all the time. It's no problem. Did you know that Jerry Seinfeld is at IU tonight?
I did, yeah.
I did not know that.
Charging a crazy amount for tickets either, which is it feels like it's unusual for shows that come through here. It always feels like shows that come through Bloomington charge a little more for tickets. I assume just because they can't draw quite as big a crowd.
Well, for the older peeps, I should tell them you can sneak out of Hoosier Hysteria and jet over to the auditorium in time for his 9:30 show.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about it. It's just kids and work and Hoosier Hysteria, and I mean, by 9:30, man, I'm
I hear you.
Sweatpants and a beer on the couch. So, especially on a Friday night.
I've seen Seinfeld once. It was good. Of course, how can it not be? How's everything else going for you?
Oh, good. Just
busy.
sorry.
I get you.
Excuse me. I apologize. Just always running, always hustling. We'll just keep you that way.
Yes, it does.
All right, guys, we go live here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back here on this Friday. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. And I'm joined by Zach Osterman of the Indy Star. Appreciate Zach for joining us as always. Zach, a big day for Indiana. Of course, lots going on. Even more than I realized. And someone just informed me that Jerry Seinfeld is performing tonight at the auditorium. Not one, but 2 shows, no less. And so for the veteran fans of Indiana basketball that want to sneak out after the normal festivities just before your newest favorite artist, Gucci Mane, comes on. If you prefer to go over see Jerry, you can catch him at 9:30. Not that I'm doing a commercial, but it's an option. Hey, it's good to have options. And we've got a great one with Zach joining us. Zach, how's everything been going for you this week, man?
It's home going on for homecoming. That's always something you can count on.
Absolutely. A big weekend in and around the Bloomington area, of course, but nothing bigger than Hoosier Hysteria, which tips off, I should say, tonight at 7 at the Simon Scott Assembly Hall. You will meet your newest edition of the Indiana basketball team. Unfortunately, the other good news that I think a lot of fans were hoping on doesn't appear it's going to be going in that direction. The tea leaves for Boogie Fland appear to be blowing towards Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah, and listen, Indiana, you're always going to be disappointed when you lose out on a recruitment. What I would say is, we've seen Indiana, sort of build itself in a variety of different ways into a program that, that can and that wants to and that has the ability to get into these high-level recruitments. The one thing you got to accept, if that's the pool you want to swim in, is you're going to lose some. And you're not going to lose them because of some dramatic left turn or, because of something crazy on a visit. You're just going to lose them because, the other side's tough too. Indiana's beaten Kansas to 2 5-star recruits in the last 6 months. That Bill Self would probably be sitting there and saying, well, geez, I just won a national title. I'm as successful as any coach in college. Why aren't these kids lining up for me? And I guess, my point here is the turnabout will come for Indiana too. Like you, everything I've heard suggests Boogie Fland is going to commit to Kentucky this afternoon. The turnabout will come for Indiana fans. That's, as I texted with somebody earlier today, that's life in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. And you make the perfect point that they have won not one but 2 consecutive battles over Kansas. You're not going to win every battle. It's not going to happen. These teams are also good. They have great runs of putting guys in the NBA. They have NIL. Fans, I know, look at things from their perspective, but it is what it is, and it's life. And you go on. That does not hurt Indiana anyway, but I wonder, does this affect Derek Queen? I don't know that it does or not. And what does Indiana do next? Because the one thing that I have seen from them over the last couple of years is they tend to go all in on particular guys. And last year they ended up with an extra scholarship kind of because of that. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen again, but that's kind of how you get in that position, going all in on guys and on the ones you lose out on. You still got to fill that gap.
Yeah, listen, that's the one. I don't know if it's criticism is quite a fair word, but I think that's the one piece of this that is a little bit just sort of the choices you make, and there's no sort of risk-free approach in recruiting. If you recruit kids you're likely to land because you're not going to have high-level competition for them, then maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe those kids, aren't quite at the same level as the guys that are going to go to the top programs and help win a lot of games. If you aim high, that means, you swing hard. Sometimes you're going to miss hard. And I think, it is probably a fair assessment that Indiana has been pretty picky with, the guys that it has decided to kind of go down to the wire with. If we rewind 3-4 months, Indiana was still in the frame for some other guards. Jaden Mustaf, obviously Curtis Givens, recently committed to LSU. I know Dylan Harper is still kind of talking about Indiana a little bit here and there, but I think everybody believes that's still comfortably probably Rutgers or Duke at this point. And that's just crowd think. I don't know that that's necessarily gospel, but I also don't think Indiana can just pick up the phone with one of the top 2 or 3 players in the country and say, hey, we weren't prioritizing you before, but we are now. Wouldn't you like to be a Hoosier? That's the risk of this approach. And I think Indiana's staff has always felt like, where they had misses, they could fill a lot of those spots in the portal. And not that they have a perfect record in the portal either. And again, nobody's going to, but they have been able to recruit impact players out of the portal. Xavier Johnson, Miller Kopp, just this year, Peyton Sparks, Khalil Ware. They've been able to use the portal effectively, though not necessarily, you're not batting 1,000. Nobody does. But it will be interesting. It is kind of hard to know where Indiana goes at that guard spot in particular. One that is going to be a need because Xavier Johnson, officially, finally, cannot come back after the season, basically no matter what happens. They're going to need another impact player in that sort of lead guard, point guard, however you want to describe it, role. Are they prepared to just wait until the spring and find something or someone in the portal? Is there someone they could accelerate a timetable with, right now, just in the last few weeks of the window, or somebody that maybe they could target in the spring from a high school perspective? We'll see. But it certainly, there's no obvious sort of pivot, I guess. And that's in no small part because it felt like Indiana had kind of whittled down its own options. And, I'm sure there's 1 or 2 guys where, Indiana got the call and said, I appreciate you recruiting me, but I'm probably going to look somewhere else. But I think there's also some options on this list of offers and of guys that maybe visited or had Indiana in top 5, or top 7s, or top 8s, where Indiana basically made the call and said, we're going to kind of remove ourselves from that process because we're going to go all in over here. And it didn't work out with Bogey plan. The flip side is last spring probably would have been dreaming of a Hunter Dickinson,
sorry about
and Zimbako front
losing
line this year, and they're not going to. This is the one Indiana's taken.
Zach cutting out a little bit there as he is moving on this morning. Something came out yesterday, Zach, in regards to Michigan and potential sign stealing, and I kind of laugh at this, although it's making the rounds. But I laugh when this comes days after the decision on Kansas and the basketball investigation that drug on for like 6 years, with all the things that actually did happen, and nothing. They received virtually no punishment. So sign stealing to me is a joke when you compare it to the things that went on previously. But they are under investigation again. And the only reason that could be a problem is because this is not the first time Michigan has been under investigation in the last 365 days.
Yeah, I think sign stealing, and I don't want to speak too far out of school on this because, not that I expect anybody to be, prompting this story on the word of the IU writer at the Indianapolis Star. Let's put it this way. People have mentioned to me Michigan's adeptness at spotting your signs before. This is not new. It's also worth saying everybody does it in some way or another. Maybe you have somebody in the stadium. Maybe you just review film closely, whatever it is. It's kind of, I think it's probably fair to say it's one of those things where I don't even think it's a gentleman's agreement. It's just kind of omerta that, like, if everybody's doing it to a point, then everybody's going to accept it to a point. It's when maybe you begin to take it a little over the top. I think about the international signings pool scandal that got the Braves in a bunch of trouble years ago. It was one of those things where it sort of felt like, hey, it's an open secret that many teams are doing stuff like this. But the Braves probably got just a little too blatant with it. They got a little bit too careless in the details and just kind of let things maybe, spiral a little bit too much and become just a little bit, basically just break the rules a little too flagrantly, if you understand what I'm saying. And I think that may kind of be where we've wound up a little bit with Michigan is, again, I think a lot of programs do this. I think it's just sort of understood. It's something, it's something everyone's aware of, probably not dissimilar to, and I don't know a lot of the details with Michigan. And so I don't, I want to say this up front that this is not me, this is not me drawing a direct one-to-one comparison. But when you think about what the Astros got in trouble for years ago in baseball, everybody steals signs in baseball.
It's part of the game.
How advanced you are with it is your choice. How refined your process, how much you want to work on it, and all that. It's a question of maybe when you just kind of go beyond the pale, like the Astros did, using technology, using a signaling system, all these things that felt like it's like, well, not only are you sort of violating the spirit of the letter of the law, but you're kind of violating the spirit of what we've all sort of tacitly agreed here is what's allowed here, what's just a competitive advantage, and what is, actually sort of harming people's livelihoods and things like that. So I think that's, I don't know all the details of the Michigan case, and I suspect I never will. What I will say is, stealing signs in college football is nothing new. If you're getting pulled up on it, then I suspect that may be because, in no small part, because maybe you were going a little too over the top with it.
Yeah, and I keep saying the old adage: if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Because, as you say, when people get caught, it's not like they've invented this. The first person that comes to my mind when I think of this is Bill Belichick, and New England, they went on a run. You think of Kansas and Duke and all these programs that are able to stay on top for so long. Well, it ain't just good coaching. But it is what it is until it's proven otherwise. But I guess my bigger question is, what is the NCAA going to, what would they do when they've proven that even when they have evidence, they don't do jack squat about certain things? So how do you then turn around and say, okay, well, this is worth punishing, but that wasn't?
Well, I think, first of all, again, I don't know all the details of the Michigan case. It is important to remember these are going to be two separate sort of arms of rules enforcement that when you talk about stuff like what happened with Kansas, or even with what happened with North Carolina, you're dealing with things that are much more on the athlete side, whether it's, recruiting impropriety, academic dishonesty, anything like that. When you're talking about something like this is more of a competition penalty, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. Zach having a connection problem with his phone this morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We'll try to get back to him. But Zach Osterman, make sure you give him a follow on at the Indy Star and on all social media platforms, of course. Zach, the Indiana beat writer, of course, for the Indy Star. He'll be at Simon Scott Assembly Hall tonight, as will I, as Indiana tips off their college basketball season. And we've got more coming up later, including Andrew Barth, from New York. We'll talk more about the Boogie Fland commitment that is coming up, and doesn't look like it's going to go Indiana's way. But we'll be back with plenty more here on Indiana Sports Beat right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Sorry about that, Zach. Or he's... Oh, there you go. Are you there, RC? Is anybody there? Am I all alone?
I'm here. My fiance is making a smoothie, so I have it on mute right now.
A smoothie?
She liked that. Oh, here it goes.
Andrew joins us at 10:10. Man, it is warm.
All right, we go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this beautiful Friday. Zach Osterman joined us in the last segment. Looking forward to seeing him. Zach, are you there, by the way?
Yeah, I just got home. Sorry about that.
Oh, perfect. I didn't know you were still with us. So perfect. Still have Zach along for the ride. Won't keep you long. Tonight, Indiana has his Hoosier Hysteria. Tips off the season. How do you think the announcement of Boogie Flan will impact the festivities there? I know it's not going to change it a lot, but fans are going to be disappointed as they're allowed to be. But it's that one commitment does not have much to do with the season.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I imagine the timing probably could have been better in some fans' minds, just in terms of, what day, a kid decides to decide, and the extent to which it would kind of feel like it was a bit all or nothing, either, sort of a double celebration or, one thing kind of dampening the other. I still think just generally, Hoosier Hysteria, as you and I both know, it's just kind of meant to be sort of a celebratory thing. I think it's so much more ceremonial than it's ever been in the past. And for your coaches, your staff, and even to some extent, I guess, your players, it's probably the least important part of the day, in the sense that players will practice. Players are virtually guaranteed to practice the day of Hoosier Hysteria, because you have to count it as a practice day, whether you do actual on-court work or not. So you're going to do on-court work. And then, with your coaches, they're going to have a ton of recruits in town. They're going to be wanting to spend a lot of time with those players and their families. And so it's not like you don't care about it, but it's one part of a much larger sort of tapestry, so to speak, if you're of the weekend, if you're Indiana. And I don't think it's something where everybody's going to show up in a somber mood. I think you just kind of, you recognize it for what it is, and you celebrate it, and then you crack on with the weekend.
Some other news for Big Ten basketball fans: the Gavitt games at an impasse. Whether that goes forward or not, we're not sure how that's going to go. That could be partly due to the ever expanding Big Ten conference and the schedule that they already have to deal with.
Yeah, I think the question I would have, and I kind of got into this a little bit within the last 12, I guess, to 18 months. So last year was supposed to be the last year of the Gavitt games in their initial run. And if you looked at just like the contract as it was signed, I think that was in 2020 or 2015, I think, was the first year. And then basically they scrapped them during COVID because everybody played truncated non-conference seasons. And so they added an extra year on, more or less. I think the question you'd have the thing that I think probably determines that from the Big Ten side as much as anything else, there's still no movement yet on a Big Ten scheduling model when the Big Ten moves to 18 teams. And obviously, if we sit here and do the math, you got 17 other teams in the if you're one of 18, you got 17 other teams in the league. You've got a 20-game league schedule. I don't know how there's not a convenient way to create an even remotely balanced schedule, with those numbers. And so would you need to be in some sort of place where you need to expand your conference schedule again? Would you want to be in some sort of place where maybe I would be surprised if this is the case, but if you contracted it in theory to 18 games, then you could just play everybody once and then have maybe one protected rival. So like Indiana, as an example, would play everybody one time and then Purdue a second time to ensure that game always got played home and away. I would be surprised if they contracted the conference schedule for a host of reasons. But the point is, I'm not sure if 20 is an ideal number when you're trying to schedule something that looks at least somewhat balanced with an 18-team league. And I bring all of that up to say, if you're the Big Ten, I think you've got to figure out what your scheduling model is, how big your conference schedule might be, and just what that looks like, let's say, over the next 4 to 5 years at a minimum, before you start entering into these kinds of partnerships where you're promising that a substantial portion annually of your teams are going to participate in something like the Gavitt Games. Because, for example, let's just, and nobody's whispered this in my ear. I'm not dropping some sort of nugget that I know to be true, and I just can't confirm it. I always want to put that out there with this stuff as a disclaimer. But let's just hypothetically say the Big Ten goes to a 22-game schedule. That cuts your non-conference season from 11 games to 9 games. So if that starts next year, Indiana's already got the Battle for Atlantis. That's 3 non-conference games. History tells us that Indiana is going to want to add another game sometime in December, at least one. One of those prime December weekends when we've seen Indiana play Auburn, Kansas, Arizona, back when the Crossroads Classic existed. That was when it was. So that's a 4th non-conference game. Now you're telling Indiana they have to play in a Gavitt game in early November. Well, suddenly they're only playing 9 non-conference games, and you just put them in a position where 5 of them are very difficult. We always talk about the balance of how many marquee games you want to play in your non-conference and what you need to give your fans, your season ticket holders at home, all those kinds of things. And that's relevant. But there also does come a point where coaches need those guarantee games. They need to fill up non-conference home dates for season ticket purposes. And coaches also they want those games to be able to experiment, to be able to tinker, to be able to say, hey, we can play badly tonight and still win by 20, and I can fiddle with my lineups and still win comfortably. And, if somebody's maybe a little banged up, I can rest them without feeling like I'm sacrificing some sort of competitive advantage. And so I think that's the tricky part of something like the Gavitt Games. And again, you think, cast your mind ahead to, I think it's 2026, 2027, which is, not next week, but it's obviously not that far away. Indiana's committed to be in the Maui Invitational that season. Indiana's already got Kentucky on the schedule that season. So again, if you're going to expand your conference and therefore contract your non-conference, well, then you've got a situation where you can already find a season where Indiana, almost half of Indiana's non-conference schedule, using IU as the example, is eaten up by marquee games. And it just kind of, you've got to, you got a lot of different sort of stakeholders you've got to serve if you're the Big Ten when you're doing something like drawing up a scheduling model. But one of the primary, if not the primary group there, is your teams and your programs, and you've got to put them in positions to succeed. And I'm not super sure that, sort of promising yourself into another Gavitt Games situation without a clearer idea of what you want the near to medium term future to look like from a scheduling perspective makes the most sense. I'm not saying it's going to die. I'm not saying it's guaranteed to be re-upped. I just would understand why the Big Ten might be, pulling some of that, just basically pumping the brakes, I guess.
And in addition to that, not only the games that are being added through the Big Ten Conference itself, these are not easy games. These are games that you have to travel for. These are games against UCLA. So you're adding marquee games automatically within the new conference schedule. That's part of that balance. So from a competitive side and from a fan's perspective, some of these games are going to be better than what they're losing, depending upon who you're scheduled to play against in the Big East. And you're not always, while they try, you can tell that they try to always make matchups that are TV worthy. You don't always get that. And luckily, Indiana is a marquee name, and they generally do get the better matchups. That's when we had the ACC Big Ten Challenge. It was usually North Carolina or Duke a lot of the time for specific reasons. But now you've got Indiana and UCLA and whatnot. That is going to be a year in, year out thing. So it's not needed as much either.
No, I mean, I think that's fair. And the Gavitt games were always, it always felt like the Gavitt games tried to seek out some non-traditional or, maybe less expected, like we never saw Indiana play Villanova or Georgetown, for example. But they played Creighton, they played Seton Hall. Never saw Indiana play Butler. Now, I think that was probably influenced somewhat by the Crossroads Classic and the fact that those two already had kind of a biannual, meeting. And so you didn't want to overlap with that too much. But I think that's a valid point too. You're bringing, other programs into the conference that are going to make the conference tougher, that are going to make it stronger. UCLA is really good. USC has been pretty consistently competitive under Andy Enfield. Obviously, Dana Altman's done well at Oregon, and Oregon is always going to kind of have the Nike brand behind it. Washington hasn't necessarily been a factor lately, but Seattle is a really, really good city for just basketball sort of talent. And the Seattle area produces, I don't think people realize quite how much basketball talent comes out of the Seattle area, just in if you look in kind of rolling 3 or 5 year periods. So the point is, as you say, you're already adding, a decent bit of sort of marquee, whatever. And if I'm totally playing the hypothetical game, and we can go crazy with that, I could see a world where the conference might also try to schedule, some of these games that might send an Indiana or a Michigan State out west, push that conference season back before Christmas, and maybe you can send your Indianas, your Michigan States out for some of those conference games out on the West Coast at a time when maybe they're out of school. And so that, the travel and all those different kinds of things don't necessarily become such an administrative issue with regard to academics and missing class and, getting home at 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever it might be. So, there's 1,000 different ways you can kind of pull that string. But I think the most fundamental part of this is I don't think the Big Ten can, responsibly, and not that the Big Ten's being irresponsible, but I don't think you could responsibly enter into any sort of kind of non-conference scheduling pact or long-term plan or long-term relationship or partnership until you know what your conference scheduling format's going to look like, because that everything's got to fit around that, and everything's got to make sense around that, both for your TV partners and also just for the sort of competitive balance and the protection of your programs. So I think that's got to go first.
We haven't talked much about football. Indiana, homecoming weekend, taking on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights and Greg Schiano, who they're looking for a 6th win to become bowl eligible. Of course, while Indiana is trying to keep things afloat. They are a 5-point underdog at home. We are back to having a quarterback race, I guess. I don't know really what else to call it. I guess that's been decided. We just don't know who that's going to be again. And it's a little odd. Most teams don't have this many games into the season, but of course, Indiana did just have a change at offensive coordinator. So it's only fair to give Rod Carey his opinion, his choice, what he thinks that the offense needs to going forward to do the best that they can. I think you saw a little of that last week in the game at Michigan. They kind of used that the same way they seem to use the Ohio State game. But we'll find out tomorrow who that is.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm I try not to sort of get swept up in the passions of just sort of online discourse and whatever else. Having said that, Indiana's got to stop this, and I don't think that's a hot take. I don't think it's a controversial opinion. You literally even had players, sort of admitting last weekend after the Michigan game that it's harder to prepare. It's harder to kind of just get that rhythm and that comfort when you're not sure who the quarterback's going to be, drive to drive. And, we heard a lot from Tom Allen this week talking about staying consistent to your process and your principles and, striving to really be, just that sort of consistent, unwavering, player by player kind of team. You focus on every day, you put everything into that day. You don't get distracted by the bigger picture. Well, then some of that needs to be practiced where it's preached in terms of, just sort of being able to at minimum say, hey, it's week 8 and it's game 7. And we need to just sort of pick somebody and run with it. And that player needs to be allowed to make some mistakes. That player needs to be allowed to, take some lumps or whatever you want to say. But Indiana's just got to, and you're right. I mean, listen, Indiana made one of the most sort of fundamental changes you can make midseason in replacing its offensive coordinator, also its play caller, also its quarterbacks coach, all in the same person. And Rod Carey does need the time and the patience to just sort of make sure he can figure certain things out and get certain things arranged in the way that he wants them. But in the same breath, at some point you have got to find your way to just stopping that carousel, because it's not healthy. It's not healthy for any element of your football program. And Indiana's got to just find that consistency that it can sort of build around for the second half of the season. And that obviously starts with a really big game on Saturday.
Yeah. And nobody wants to talk bad about Tom Allen. He's a great guy. But when it comes to making the decisions, these decisions ultimately fall on the head of the head coach. And it's not a good look for Tom with this continuing to happen over and over, especially with the situation he's starting to find himself in. It really leans on his lack of offensive. I'm looking for the right word. I'll just use cohesion as a head coach. He's obviously a great defensive mind, but not having the experience on the offensive side has really hurt him as a head coach. And it seems like it's still carrying on, not with very little change in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, and again, this all can kind of be tied back into, changes at coordinator and just Indiana struggling to kind of figure out what it is or what it wants to be offensively. But, one of the most fundamental elements to answering that question and figuring out, what you want to be is having a quarterback that you sort of stand behind and you say, this is our guy, and yes, he'll make a few mistakes, but we're going to let him grow through those, learn from those, and just keep sort of persisting so that everybody feels like the ship is sort of keeping its course, I guess. And listen, I'm not saying, you blindly follow one player or another, and there's other dynamics at play. When Dexter Williams is healthy enough for regular snaps, does he get some sort of say in this? There's always, of course, if we fast forward to an off season, there's portal incomings, there's portal outgoings. That's always going to be part of it as well. But you've got to find some consistency. Again, it's hard to preach, or it's hard to ask for, I should say, consistency from your players if you can't kind of deliver them consistency in the structure and the framework of the team that they're, the offense that they're playing in. And so I think I understand why Indiana has, sort of struggled with this. And listen, I also, as much as anybody was saying in the preseason, remember both these kids are redshirt freshmen. Neither one of these guys is likely to just sort of step in and be, Joe Montana right away or whatever comparison. Nate Sudfeld, whoever. They're both young. They're both inexperienced. They were both bound to have some serious growing pains. That's just the nature of the position and their age for most guys. But at some point, for the service of both players as well as your team, you've got to be able to just sort of pick one and say confidently, we're going to stand behind this guy and we're going to let him lead us forward and we're going to give him every chance to succeed. So I think that's, it seems like it's probably going to happen this weekend, but at the same time, it's week 7 and we're still dealing with this whole, we've picked a starter. We're not going to tell anybody, but we've picked a starter. Well, that's, at some point you got to get off that. You got to get out of the cycle, and you got to go forward with it. And I think that Indiana needs to find its way to that now, frankly.
Zach Osterman from the Indy Star, brother. We'll see you tonight at the Simon Scott Assembly Hall. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, as always.
Our pleasure and our great fortune. Make sure you give Zach a follow and be a subscriber. Keep local papers alive, baby. We'll be back with Andrew Barth. More basketball right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andrew, how are you, brother?
Good. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. It sure would. Audience would be a lot happier if we had better news for them, but life is life, baby, and it rolls on.
Yeah, exactly.
What a kick in the nuts, though. For if I was Woody, I would have said, "Dude, if it's not gonna go our way, can you announce this on Thursday or Sunday or Saturday, but not on Hoosier Hysteria Day?"
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting timing. Especially, being that it's it's not the latest it could be. So yeah, definitely interesting. But I guess
I wouldn't be surprised if Calipari said, "Hey, would you mind doing this on Friday?"
that would be pretty funny.
It's and I'm telling you, that would not surprise me, because there is always has been the Indiana. I know people like to think Duke and Kentucky or Duke, North Carolina. Indiana, Kentucky went way back. And I mean, it goes back to Knight against Rupp. I mean, it was, and you got, it's, and then of course they haven't played for the last few years, because the last time Indiana beat Kentucky in Bloomington when they were ranked number 1, that didn't sit well with John. And so he ended the series, which sadly, but now we get to see that come back, which the irony is, do they play next year, or is it the year after? I think it's the year after. Boogie could very possibly be in a Kentucky uniform. And there's another kid named Joey Hart, whom I thought Indiana would go after, and they did not really. That ended up going to Kentucky, who's not very far from Bloomington.
Let's take this conversation live, gentlemen. It's a good one. We go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Friday. Hoosier Hysteria tonight at 7 p.m. out at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. Jim Coyle with you, and joined by Andrew Barth. Andrew, are you at the Syracuse site?
Yeah,
rival site.
Yeah, I'm originally from New Jersey. I grew up playing and pretty low level. But my dad went to Rice High School in Harlem.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so I grew up around a lot of big time players. Then my buddy Cody got me a job with the hoop group when I was in high school. So I've been around AAU and high level high school basketball my whole life, and then I went to Pitt, went to Georgia. I actually went to Georgia with a couple people. My buddy Dave Boyer went to Indiana, so he kind of got me linked in with Indiana hoops a little more. And now I write for Syracuse, but I do more of like recruiting and not really too much about actual
game stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very, very cool. And people don't realize, while Indiana is the undisputed king of high school basketball, the Northeast, the New York area, Jersey, whatever, high school basketball is big there. I mean, I think back to dadgunnit, the coach of UConn, his brother who went to Duke. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on their names.
Yeah, the Hurley brothers.
The Hurley brothers. And wasn't their dad the coach?
Yeah, their dad, Bobby Hurley, was he's kind of like the best high school coach of all time. St. Anthony's produced a lot of high-level talent. I think they just closed their doors a few years ago. But yeah, he's a pretty funny guy. Went to a couple camps when I was a kid where he would talk and stuff. And he's intense, but he was definitely a great coach. I want to say probably the last big recruits. I mean, St. Anthony's had just about big time people. Then you had St. Benedict's right down the street, which, had J.R. Smith and Samardo Samuels and players like that back in the day. And then you get into New York and you're talking about Rice. You're talking about Cardinal Hayes now is much bigger, but back then it was kind of Rice, St. Raymond's. So, at times even I think high school hoops was even sometimes bigger than college hoops in the actual city because of how bad St. John's was.
Well, speaking of that, and you've got Rick Pitino up there now. And I'm telling you, I don't care what people say. From his time at Louisville, and Kentucky as well, but there's not a better coach in the college game today than Rick Pitino. I will argue that fact to the death with anybody from a coaching standpoint. You don't have to like him. You don't have to approve of everything he's done in his life, but there's not a better coach in the game today. And if I was a player who I thought I needed something more to get to the league, he's probably the guy I would go to. I mean, I don't mean that against Woody or anybody else. From his track record, what he does, man. Everybody talks about Calipari, which that drives me up the wall, because 90% of the guys that he has, quote unquote, put in the NBA were already on the NBA board for the next year's draft. So that's not putting anybody anywhere in my mind.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I even originally crystal balled Boogie to St. John's the day he got hired. I had a buddy text me that expect Rick to go big game hunting with NIL money from Body Armor. And I was kind of thinking, well, who would that be? And Ian Jackson was already committed to UNC. So I thought, well, maybe it's Boogie. And then all of a sudden I saw somebody report that Rick Pitino was going to visit Boogie like that Friday. So I was like, you know what? Rick Pitino's actually allowed to use money now to recruit. I think he could get somebody, but it's looking like he might flip Ian Jackson now. There's a lot of rumors that he might flip off from UNC and head over.
Well, that may be the problem. He used to have Adidas money. I don't know that St. John's has Adidas money.
Yeah, they got Body Armor money. So I'm not sure how well known that is, but the CEO of Body Armor, I believe, went to St. John's. And
oh wow, I did not know that.
That was part of the reason why he took I don't think he would have taken the St. John's job if he wasn't kind of told he would have some financial resources.
So they're the Oregon of the East, baby.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah. Body Armor is definitely going to help Rick. And it's looking like he might get his first back to his old ways of getting those New York City point guards like he did with, Sebastian Telfair, who didn't end up going to Louisville, Edgar Sosa. All those guys were, New York City guys that Rick got to come to Kentucky. So,
he got 22 transfers out of the portal last year.
Yeah, something like that.
We'll see. Speaking of point guards, you had crystal balled, and a lot of us had thought that even though it's been a tight race, that's what I've been telling everybody. I'm like, hey man, everybody I'm talking, or the guys I've talked to, it's got it very, very close. Slight Indiana lean, but when it's a lean, the wind doesn't have to blow very hard to push the tree the other way. And it appears that now that is the case, that the tea leaves are pointing towards Lexington for the services of Boogie Fland. What do you think was the difference there, or if there was even a change? What was it?
I'd assume it has to do with probably Boogie's relationship with DJ Wagner, and a combination of they believe DJ Wagner is NBA ready, and the backcourt will be his. But Boogie also, as does DJ Wagner, kind of have the ability to play off the ball. I think to make it at the next level, he's going to have to prove to NBA scouts that he can play with the ball in his hand. He's a little undersized for today's NBA. So that's where I kind of thought, the Jalen Hood Shifiano, if you told me he was going to the NBA after 1 year, I would have, shook my head so hard I would have got CTE. But they got, but they clearly developed him. And, I think that Xavier Johnson, I'm actually a Pitt grad, so I've been following Xavier Johnson for the 7 years he's been in college basketball. And, the backcourt's going to be open next year. And I thought that was good. That was definitely what was being sold to Boogie. It was his backcourt. But, if DJ Wagner can take those steps from the same perspective, he could easily go probably right outside the lottery. He's kind of got like a Tyrese Maxey-esque game. So I don't think he would be a lottery pick, but I could see him going to a playoff type team who needs a good shooter off the bench right away. And then it could be Boogie's backcourt in Lexington. So I think that's just what was sold.
Xavier Johnson, as you mentioned, in his final season in Bloomington after returning from an injury last year. Gabe Cupps is the man behind him right now, and he's a guy that I've always heard great things about him and about his game back to when he was in high school, that he's just a gritty kind of a player, which you always love to hear that, because if you're not, they're not going to push as nearly as hard as you want. And maybe this helps improve his game, or I don't know it. But the thought of somebody like that coming in, that's got to push him to work harder, to get better, faster. Not that he is not good, but my point being, if he wants to take over this spot next year and not be recruited over, that's going to be up to him.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And it also I think it also opens up a lot more money for potentially Queen coming in. I know Maryland essentially is spending their whole bag on trying to get him, and he's there this weekend. But he's almost the opposite of Boogie in terms of Indiana, where the longer this draws out, I think the better Indiana's chances become. So
does losing out on Boogie Fland, if that in turn or turns out to be the case, do you think it helps in their cause to landing Derek Queen?
I don't think it hurts or helps. I think if anything, it just allows them to allocate more resources towards getting him, visiting him. He's from Maryland. I wasn't really that familiar with his game. Syracuse was recruiting Donnie Freeman, who was from the same kind of the DMV area. And I was kind of told back in April, like, oh, this is like Maryland's recruitment to lose. Haven't heard anything since then. And it seems like Maryland is kind of losing it a little bit. So I think that, any sort of NIL money, or there's just a lot more resources, a lot more time that could be spent on Queen right now. So I think I guess long story short, I think it does help them in the sense that it gives them more, time and money. But obviously everyone likes to play with good players, and Boogie is definitely a stud. So it definitely doesn't help, but I
hadn't thought about that really, because it is a large chunk of change we're talking about here, because the 5 stars guys, obviously those are the guys that are making the most, getting the most. And so that hadn't even occurred to me yet, because we're doing so many different things, but yeah, that does that. Or does Indiana turn their eyes towards another point guard, which, as Zach pointed out, it's kind of hard to go, hey, we weren't prioritizing you, but we have an opening now, oddly enough. So we'd like to talk to you.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely a possibility. It also opens, inevitably also potential NIL money for a transfer at the beginning of next year's portal. There's always a couple good point guards that enter. There's coaching changes, and a lot of those, you look at Miami, they were dropping, I think it was the CEO Life Wallet was giving out,
money like it was toilet paper, baby.
Exactly, and that went to all transfers. So, you might get somebody that's in the portal next year that they can use, or they could flip someone. It's still, or there's a coaching change. You look at West Virginia, just things change quickly in today's world.
Absolutely.
It's wild.
Speaking of the Northeast, not too long from now, the Empire Classic will take place up at Madison Square Garden, the sports mecca of the world. And Indiana will tip off their season, but that's when things get hot and heavy. They'll take on the defending national champion UConn Huskies. And then the next day, either Louisville or Texas. But the Indiana-UConn game kind of stands out. Not too far after that, they play the number 1 ranked Kansas Jayhawks. So Indiana's going to get tested early and often.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think UConn's going to be very good again this year. I think they might have the best freshman in the country, and Stephon Castle out of he went to Newton High School in Covington, Georgia. I was down in Georgia watching some high school hoops. Isaiah Collier, she's going to USC. He was ranked the number 1 player. Honestly, I thought Castle played a lot better in the games I went to. So yeah, that should be a good test for Indiana. And if Indiana fans are looking for kind of someone on the other side to kind of keep their eyes open for, I think he's a potential one and done who could be a top 10 draft pick.
Man, I can't thank you enough, Andrew, for taking the time out to join us today, and look forward to doing it again. Probably when we get closer to maybe playing UConn in some of those games.
Yeah. Sounds great. We'd love to be back on, and appreciate you having me and, letting us plug the juice. It's a relatively new comer to the Rivals Network. So, definitely trying to get our name out there a little more, and I'm happy to talk Indiana hoops whenever you want.
Hey man, I love the name, man. The Juice.
Yeah,
it's a good name, except it does remind me of OJ, and I'm not talking about the drink.
Yeah. Well,
Andrew,
he's still a legend in Buffalo, so it's all good, I guess.
He's a legend in a lot of places, but different reasons. Andrew Barth, thank you so much from the Juice, the Rivals Network of Syracuse. Have a great day, brother. I cannot thank Bob Kravitz enough, Zach Osterman, and of course Andrew Barth, RC, for keeping us between the white lines. Don't forget, of course, tonight at 7, you've got Simon Scott Assembly Hall. Hoosier Hysteria tips off. Homecoming is this weekend. Indiana taking on Rutgers. They are a 5-point underdog in tomorrow's game. Who will the quarterback be? I don't know. I really don't know. I said it to the start of the season, and I'm sticking to it. I think it will be Sorsby. Now, with one caveat, I don't know what the hell's going on with Dexter Williams, and they're going to keep that quiet until probably he comes out into a game, I'm going to imagine. But we'll be covering everything tonight. We'll have all kinds of coverage for you from Hoosier Hysteria. Make sure you go to thehoosier.com on Rivals for all of that. In addition to all of our coverage from Indiana Sports Beat, we'll have that up on our YouTube channel. And if you're not a subscriber, you need to be, so you don't miss out on anything like the added content from things like Hoosier Hysteria. Just go to @Indiana Sports Beat Radio and hit the subscribe button, notifications toggle, and hit the like button while you're there. As Fred pointed out earlier, it's free. It's all free. Man, you guys have been great as always. We could not be here without you, and you're the most important of all. Thank you so much. Until Monday, officially, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.